if we have limited development resources, meaning limited time, limited budget, limited number of programmers, where should we invest those resources if we're looking to improve the stability and the maintainability of our software? Hello, my name is Eric Normand, and these are my thoughts on functional programming. So I have this idea, a concept that I came up with. I'm not sure if it's related to any other ideas, but like a lot of ideas, I probably read it somewhere and I then forgot about it. It must be similar to some ideas in domain-driven design, where you have where you have a common vocabulary that you use between both the programmers and the business concern. Like there's something in there. But my idea I call the core abstraction. And what this is, and you can have multiple core abstractions in your software, but a core abstraction is something that is central to the operation of your business. And it's something core because it's fundamental, it's down right in the middle of everything, in the heart of everything. And so that is what you want to get right. All the stuff about the UI and what buttons look like and even what buttons to show, that stuff is not part of your core abstraction. That is temporary, it'll change with the seasons, but there are things in there that are going to be built on layer upon layer upon layer. You're never going to get back in there and fix them. So you want to get those right from the beginning. So what is an example of a core abstraction? The example I like to use the most is from accounting. So the system of accounting that virtually everyone uses nowadays is called double entry bookkeeping, and it has a core abstraction which is the ledger. It's a list of transactions that happen at your bank or at your company, and that's it. That's all it is, and everything's about these rules for how you add stuff to the ledger, and that's basically it. And so this core abstraction of an append-only list of transactions is what powers all of it. And all the policies of the bank and the procedures and the ways the accountants operate on it, they're all based on those simple rules of how you add transactions to the ledger. And it's something that's been in use for hundreds of years. And it just works. It's probably never going to change, right? So what we're looking for when we're developing software is something that gives us high leverage. Okay, so this is an advantage you can have by having a high leverage abstraction. And then you solidify it by making it like totally well defined, get rid of the corner cases, make sure it works like in a solid way, like no bugs, no corner cases, stuff like that. And then you can build on it. So I worked for a company that did electronic document signing. So it's not cryptographic signing of the document. It's signing it like you sign a contract. And they would send out PDFs to everybody. You could go onto the website and you could click a button, or you could like sign with your mouse saying, I read it and I agree. And at first we were using a very typical REST model where it was just sort of like we had some operations for like the when the user would view the document, we would make a little note that they viewed it, and when they signed it, we would make a note that they signed it. And it just felt very loose. It wasn't a very well abstracted model. It was just sort of like, let's just start recording a little bit of data. And so at some point, I went deep into it and really started investigating what does it mean to sign a document. And I started reading about it. I talked to a lawyer or two about what it meant. I read a tiny bit of the history of signing documents and contracts, and I really started to understand from a domain point of view what it was all about. And what it was all about was gathering evidence about the agreement. So the signature and the initialing the pages, all of that, it's all about evidence for yourself and for the other party that this was the same paper that you read 5 years ago when you signed the contract. If there's ever a dispute, oh yeah, you're right, I did sign this, that is my signature. And so what it really is an evidence gathering document. You put more and more evidence onto this paper. You put your blood on it, you sign it, you initial all the pages, you number the pages so none are missing. So there's all these little artifacts that you gather on the document that are evidence for later if anything goes wrong, right? So we started to reorient the abstractions in our system, the software, to be about evidence gathering and collection and maintenance for the long term, for the future. And everything we did was just aggregating more and more evidence onto it. Any operation that modified the document was appending new evidence onto it. And so we developed a very strong model with a very good core abstraction that gave us business leverage. It gave us an advantage, a business advantage over other systems, because the other systems weren't doing that. The other systems were doing what we were doing at first, which was just kind of willy-nilly saying, the whole agile way of saying, well, we need a checkbox that says that they agree, right? And so we would just put a checkbox that said they agree, and we would kind of record that in a database. But there was no unifying model. There was no nice model of how things should change over time and stuff like that. So we really developed this nice core abstraction, and ever since then, it's been something I'm always on the lookout for. It requires you to understand your domain better than you might already understand it. I had to do all this research into what signing a document actually meant, but I was glad I did, and I learned a ton of stuff. And I developed this abstraction that actually captures the stuff that lawyers are thinking is supposed to be happening, right? They want evidence later that they can present in court if it ever gets there. And so the best way to preempt a trial or a suit is to have more evidence so that you don't even have to get to that point. It's so clear who's going to win that no one wants to fight, right? So this is my idea, core abstraction. It's something that you're going to build layers on. Certainly your UI is going to be built on top of it. The possible operations are built out of the operations of your core abstraction. But then there's all the other stuff like the logging and all the junk that accumulates in your software for good reasons. It's going to be based directly on that. So you could actually like log all of the model operations, the core abstraction operations, and make that something that happens automatically because you've enumerated them. And they're a small number, and you get rid of all the corner cases. It's just going to be this tight little system that's worth putting more effort into, because everything else is going to be built on top. So you're not going to have some operations that are poorly defined, that are just defined in a use case somewhere in a user story, like we need a checkbox on the front page, and then you don't really store exactly what the person thought you would store, and so later they're like, okay, now show me all the documents that have a checkbox, and you haven't done that. There's no index, or there's no way to get at that information. You just didn't know that was coming down the pike, right? But if you have a more robust model, then it makes sense to everyone, and it's going to be easier to use and harder to get wrong. All right. My name is Eric Normand. These have been my thoughts on functional programming. If you like this idea, this core abstraction idea, if you've built something like that where you had a core abstraction, something deep in the software that really defined and constrained what was possible in your software in a good way, constrained it to the happy path, please let me know. I'm curious to know if this is something that other people already do and I just somehow missed the boat, or if this is really truly something that I've kind of come up with. So please let me know. I'm Eric Normand on Twitter. You can also reach me at eric@lispcast.com. Please subscribe, tell your friends, star it, thumbs up, 5 hearts, whatever your system does, give them to me. All right, see you later. Bye.